What's up, Mech fans, and welcome back to the channel. So, 2025 is the celebration of the 30th anniversary of Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, and in early April, I talked about watching the series for the very first time, which means today we're going to be revisiting it a little bit, and I'm going to be ranking every single character that appears in the series in a tier list. Before we dive into it though, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, while you're there, head on down to the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts on Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. Let me know your favourite characters, your least favourite characters, and I guess if you want to give your ranking of all these characters as well, then feel free to do so, but there are about 25 of them. Right, so I've got the tier list up here, and if you guys have seen any of my tier list videos before, you will know the drill. As usual, we've got S, A, B, C, and D tier, and we actually have another tier this time, and that is the I Hate You tier. Now, I considered putting it as F, but this is essentially reserved for one character that I hate, but is also not like an F tier character in terms of their characterization. But first off though, we've got Catherine Blue. Now this is a character that's heavily connected with trowa barton, essentially serves as almost like a sister-like figure to him, and I think she's pretty solid. At the end of the day, she exists as like an extension of Trowa in terms of furthering his character development, and ultimately like it's that kind of supporting character for a main character. And in terms of that, she's pretty good. She doesn't really have much going for her as a standalone character, and even her place in the story is, well, like she's there at the start and then she's there towards the end, but there's a significant amount of time where she simply just is not in the story. She doesn't have a place there, but also at the same time, it's like, yeah, you just kind of write her out for most of the runtime of this series. So I'm going to put her in C. Again, not a terrible character, but no one to write home about. Next up, though, we've got Chang Wufei, one of the main Gundam pilots. And this is the character that the more I think about him, the more I like him. Much like with a lot of characters that I'm going to talk about here, there's quite a significant chunk of the series where they kind of write him out and he goes off doing his own thing, of which for the most part we don't see. And then we kind of finally learn that I guess he's been off doing, like kind of martial arts type training, which it would have been nice to see a little bit more of that and see exactly what he's been up to in like a significant chunk of time. But that's a problem that like almost permeates throughout every single character in this series, so is of course not constrained to Wufei. But yeah, I think he's just got really solid characterization. I think he has nice little mini arcs here and there. I particularly like it when he kind of loses in a fight to Trace Cruz, and then he doesn't think he's worthy of piloting. At the time, it's the Shenlong Gundam. So I really love that arc. I also kind of love when he kind of comes back into it and you get that face off between him and Trace again. I think there's just, like a really solid character arc that, kind of starts off with one thing and then ultimately it comes back round. So there's that kind of circular narrative and payoff to a lot of the stuff that goes down with him. I was going to put him in B. I'm actually going to put him in A though. I do think he's really, really solid. Not my favorite of the Gundam pilots, but a lot of them are pretty good characters and he's definitely one of them. Next up, we've got Demale Catalonia, one of those characters that is essentially supposed to be very evil and not like a good person, and that's kind of what he represents really. But he is also that other side to kind of the, I forget what they're called, but like the Earth Federation equivalent within this series, and he kind of serves as that Oz, I think is what the name is. So he's good for the purpose that he serves. He's not the most well fleshed out character ever, but at the end of the day, he serves the purpose of being that character that's so like anti colonies. Almost kind of serves as that like Giran from the original Mobile Suit Gundam. He's supposed to be like that type of character, if that makes sense. So we are going to put him in C, but I'll put him right at the top. Here's where we get a very interesting character, and that is Dorothy Catalonia. I said that I reserved a spot specifically for one character, and that is the I Hate You tier. That's exactly where Dorothy is going. I cannot stand this character. Whilst they try to do a thing at the end where they kind of give reasoning as to why she loves all the violence and fighting and that, it doesn't make me like the character. I just find her very annoying. Like, every time she's in a scene, I'm seething with rage and just want to punch her, which is probably the intention with the character, but it still doesn't change the fact that I absolutely despise it. Also, I absolutely hate her eyebrows. Like, gosh, they're so bad. Like, they really are terrible. Let's actually move on to a character that I do really like, and that is Duo Maxwell. And I'm putting him straight up into the top of S tier. He is my favorite character in the series, mainly because he just feels like the most normal kind of cool character. Like everyone has the quirks in this series. Everyone's a little bit insane, but I feel like he's the most like level-headed in ways. and he's also one of the most fun characters. He just feels like a character that could exist in other Gundam series and wouldn't feel completely out of place and really weird. I just love those kind of more fun characters, and Duo Maxwell is exactly that. Hence why he is going right at the top. He also has really good character development and a nice arc throughout the series as well, which, again, a lot of the Gundam pilots do, but Duo is just like my personal favourite. Moving on, we've got Field Marshal Naventa, a character that serves his purpose well, but is ultimately not in the series really all that much. He's essentially supposed to be there as a catalyst for the status quo of factions to change a little bit. He's very much a plot device. So we are going to sit him at the bottom of C. Again, not terrible, works for the kind of character that he is, and he has a purpose, he serves it. But as a character, there's really not enough time to flesh him out, and even when there is, really not that interesting. Next up, though, we've got the Gundam Scientists. Of course, a really prominent part of the series. Now, I could have listed all these individually, but ultimately they come as a package deal, if you will. I love when you get these like crazy, like group of crazy old guys in a series, and they're not the most moral people, they're a little bit immoral in many ways. They're kind of a bit twisted in the head, like most of the characters in this series are, let's face it. But ultimately, they just deliver some really fun moments and fun stuff in the series. And of course, they're extremely important towards everything within the series, really, the development of all the mobile suits and specifically the development of the Gundams. So I am going to sit them into B tier. Again, like as characters, they're not incredible, like you don't get a lot of depth to them, but they're just fun. Next up, though, we've got Heero Yui, specifically the politician. So this is the original Heero Yui that our main protagonist was kind of named after. Of course, this guy in universe is extremely important. To this story, he is somewhat important, but I guess it's more so the world building where he really plays a big role. But we also only see him in like brief flashback stuff, and obviously he's made reference to and such. But we never really get like a moment where we get to spend time with this character whatsoever. So it's hard to put him like in a high tier. I am going to put him in C though, just above Field Marshal Naventa, because I feel like he's more important in the grand scheme of things. But again, he's a character that's not at all fleshed out whatsoever. Speaking of Heero Yui though, we've got the actual Heero Yui, a character that is fleshed out quite a bit more than that other Heero Yui character that we just talked about. Of course, he's the main protagonist of the series, so naturally he's going to be in one of the higher tiers, but also he's such a bizarre character. It's hard to like him, it's hard to connect with him, but at the same time, like, he's almost one of the most memeable Gundam protagonists unintentionally. Like, he's so much of an edgelord that you wonder whether it's self-aware or whether it's just going too far in a direction where it's not self-aware and I think they're actually doing something good. I don't really know. I'm so like up in arms about where I stand with this character, but ultimately he's memorable at the very least. But I think as the protagonist of the series, I don't think he's the best kind of perspective character. Like, I think most of, if not all of the other Gundam pilots would probably be better perspective characters than Heero Yui. And ultimately, like, he goes through some development, but I don't think he truly changes, where at the end of the series, yeah, there's definitely a difference from start to the end, but his relationship with Relena is so bizarre. Like, I don't think I can ever get behind that. It's such a weird relationship. But this is one of those characters that, again, I kind of get what they do with him, but it's so left field and weird. I don't really fully understand the character. I don't think I ever really will. But we are going to sit him in B. He's one of my least favorites, if not my least favorite of the Gundam pilots. But Heero Yui, he's definitely a character. Next up, we've got Hilde Spiker, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, and she's essentially like your partner supporting character to Duo Maxwell, and I think she's really solid. I really like their relationship. I wish that we saw a little bit more of it, and in fact, I would happily watch a spin-off of those two characters because I think they've got a really good dynamic where one of them is a little bit more of the straight-up military character, and then someone who is a little bit more laid back, like Duo Maxwell. They kind of bounce off each other really, really well and ultimately develop a pretty good relationship. I think she does like enough to make her stand apart as her own character rather than just being kind of that, supporting piece to Duo. So she's definitely better than Catherine Bloom in my opinion, but we are definitely going to go into B tier with her. I'm actually going to put her in the middle, put her above the Gundam Scientist, because again, I really like her as a character. I think she just provides something nice to the series where, she's not like a game-changing character in terms of personality and everything like that, but she's just good. And I like her. I think she is really quite a good character. Next up, though, we've got Lady Une. And this is one of those characters where I feel like there's a big missed opportunity with her because initially I didn't like her. And to be honest, if we were going off the start of the series, she would definitely not be placed where she's about to be placed. But then they kind of introduce some elements to this character that make her really interesting and make her one of like the most unique characters in the series, where they essentially give her like this dual personality, essentially got a little bit of bipolar. And I think that's a really unique idea, where you've got like the really strict, almost evil military person, but then you've got the more soft-spoken kind of politician that, is talking with the colonies and trying to bring about peace. And she's just a really likable presence because of that. And you don't feel like it's someone secretly with evil intentions. You do feel like when she's in the more Lady Une persona, she truly believes in what she's doing, and it comes from a place of love and not hate. They set up a really interesting character arc and character dynamic with everyone else, especially with Treize, of course, as well. And they kind of write her out for quite a bit of this series. So whilst there is an incredible setup for this character to be just something that really stands out as well written and well realized, they just don't capitalize it on enough. So, if they actually had done like a fantastic job at what they were trying to go for, she probably could have been the best character in the series. Unfortunately, though, she's going to go in B, but I'm going to put her fairly high up just because, again, the whole idea and when it's executed well, it's really executed well. They just had a really cool concept with this character, and they didn't quite deliver on it as well as they could have. Following her up, though, we've got Lucrezia 9. I think she's a good character. A lot of her characterization comes from her relationship with Zechs Marquez, who, of course, we'll talk about as we get towards the end of this tier list, but she also does enough where she can stand apart from him as a character, and she can kind of stand alone just a little bit. So we are going to go into B. I'm going to put her above Hilde, though, just because I feel like she's in the series a lot more. She has a little bit more to do than what Hilde does, but I don't think she's quite got the unique characteristics that someone like Lady Une has. And of course, Hero Yue is like the protagonist, so I feel like he's got to go at least somewhat high, and there's also weird but kind of good things to do with him sometimes. Next up, though, we've got Marine Dalian, who is Relena's adoptive mother, I guess. She kind of works as like that, a little bit of a moral compass in some ways, but they really don't do anything with her. So I'm going to put her in D, and there's really not much else to say about her. Next up, though, we do have Mike Howard. Now, this is a character that purely on looks alone, I'm throwing him up into B, but we are going to put him a little bit lower down. I just think he is one of those characters that belongs in a Gundam series, if that makes sense. Like, you always need that character that feels so out of place, but in the best way possible. You look at him in comparison to every other character, the way he dresses, the way he looks, he just feels so out of place in everything, which makes him feel so right to be in all the situations he's in. Next up, though, we do have another one of the Gundam pilots, and that is Quatre Winner. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but I think he's a really, really good character. I especially love when they kind of set him on the Wing Zero. Of course, he's kind of the character that introduces it, and it's got a fantastic entrance where it essentially destroys like a colony, like all on its own, and it's crazy stuff. But I really like Quatre. I love everything that they do with him, with the Magnet core and things like that, and the way that he's almost trying to run away from like his family, not in a way where he's trying to run away from his family, but what they kind of do within the universe, and he's trying to do something a little bit different. I think those kind of character arcs and those kind of setups for characters are usually pretty good, and they do a really good job with it here. So I'm going to put him in A. I'll put him over Wufei for now. We might shift things around a little bit, but I think I just consistently liked Quatre just a little bit more than Wufei. Next up, though, after Quatre, we've got Kans Courant. This is one of those characters that I really do not care for whatsoever, so we are going to sit him in D. So this is kind of the leader of the White Fang before they then bring in Zechs as the kind of figurehead of it. Yeah, like I really don't have anything to say about this character. He just exists, and he's like, yeah, whatever. Next up, though, we do have Rashid Karama, who is kind of the leader of the Magnet Corps. I think he's just a really cool character. There's nothing incredible about him from characterization standpoint, but I love the respect that he has for Quatre. The fact that he's willing to put himself and then the rest of the Magnet Corps on the line, not out of like a selfish leader kind of thing, but everyone's willing to put their life on the line. So I guess looking at Rashid, he kind of represents the Magnet Corps, and I really do like the Magnet Corps and their relationship with Quatre. So we are going to go into B. I think I'm going to put him right at the bottom, though. That doesn't mean he's a bad character by any means. It's just that these have a little bit more to do in the series. Then we move on to one of the most controversial characters, definitely Gundam Wing, but maybe within Gundam in general, and that is Relena Peacecraft. So many people hate this character, and I completely get why. I am of two minds, where I don't think she's a terrible character, but she has just weird tendencies and such a weird perspective on everything. But also, she is a character that really suffers from kind of being written out for quite a large portion of the series. You see her trying to kill someone, and then she disappears, and then she comes back and she's like peace loving, peace to the world, all this kind of stuff. There's a large portion of the series where we don't see that development from this kind of person trying to do this thing to this. And they do kind of explain it, why her perspective changes and such, but I feel like sometimes show don't tell, and this is one of those examples. But even then, even without the kind of writing out of the character, she's just weird. Like, I don't get the writing of her. I don't get her relationship with Heero. What does she see in him? Because, you know, he tries to kill her, he rips up a birthday card, which is still just a hilarious scene, and they never seem like they have romantic feelings toward each other. Maybe Relena does, but there's really no reason for it. It just feels like such a weird toxic relationship that I've never been able to understand, and I don't think I ever quite will. So Relena is gonna go in C, but she's gonna go at the top because she's such a major character in the series. There are some good moments of writing for her, but much like with Heero, I just don't get her. Like, she's such an oddball character. Like, the pairing of Heero and Relena has got to be one of the weirdest writing decisions I've ever seen. Definitely in Gundam, but maybe ever. Moving on though, we got Sally Poe, another character that is just solid. I didn't really expect them to do like the stuff that they do with this character, because initially you're introduced to her as one of the heads, one of like the leading majors within the Earth Army, and you know, she takes Heero in, just kind of testing on him and all this kind of stuff, and then eventually like she kind of turns around to this almost like freedom fighter in a way. And I think it's really cool what they do with her, the way that they kind of implement her in with different groupings here and there. I think it's really good, and she's one of those characters that, you know, definitely gets written out in parts of the series, but I don't think it's to the detriment of the character where it can be for some of the characters. So I'm going to put her really solidly in B. I might actually put her above Lucrezia, because I think I like Sally just a little bit more. And honestly, I wish that we got a little bit more of her in the series, because I think she's just a really solid supporting character where, to a degree, she almost feels a little bit like Kaggle from Gundam Seed, in the fact that she's, you know, kind of thrown into the war zone a little bit, where she's not necessarily supposed to be there, if that makes sense. So I thought that Sally was a really good character, and I wish we saw just a little bit more of her. Next up, we've got Sadichi, who is one of the characters within White Fang. I believe he's like a major, and then he kind of switches sides a little bit. I can't remember exactly what went on with his character, which shows that he's not particularly memorable, hence why he's going to go in D. I'm going to put him at the top though, because he doesn't do anything inherently wrong. Then we move on to Treize Khushrenada, one of those characters that I don't love, but also I kind of get what they do with him. I think writing him out works in a weird way, because you always feel his presence and the fact that behind the scenes he's setting things up, and then they do come to fruition. So there is like a payoff of his lack of involvement in the story, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So for that reason, I always like the schema kind of characters, especially when they can put a plan in place and, you know, move the chess pieces and stuff around to suit what they want and suit their needs. I think that stuff's already really good. He's got a certain charm to him as well, where you can never really outright hate him, because he never does anything that's, you know, that would generally make you hate a character like him. So I think he's actually really solid, and I think initially I was going to put him in C. I am going to move him up a little bit though. We're actually going to put him in B, and I'm going to put him quite high. We'll sit him about here. I still think that Lady Une has some more interesting and unique things they do with the character, but I think Treize is probably a little bit better utilized in the story. And now we move on to Trowa Barton, who is one of my favorite of the Gundam pilots and one of my favorite in this series as a whole. I think they do some really good stuff with this character, pretty consistently as well. Like, they do good stuff with him at the start, they do good stuff with him in the middle, and they do good stuff with him at the end. Like, he's one of those characters that consistently has some good stuff going on that's engaging, that's interesting. And of course, you do have the whole thing where he kind of loses his memory and has to kind of be brought back into the fold a little bit. You see him at his highest of points, you see him at his lowest of points. He's just a really solid character, so I'm going to sit him in S tier, just under Duo though. I still like Duo just a little bit more, but depending on the day of the week, I could go back and forth between which is my favorite of these two characters. We're moving on to the last three now, and first up we've got Tuberov Bilmon, a character that is straight up dislikable, hateable, any word that you could possibly throw at him. I'm not going to put him in the I hate you tier, because my hate for him isn't as quite as strong as what it is for Dorothy, but at the same time, he's so unlikable, which is very much intentional. And there's There's no amount of redemption for him either. So we are going to sit him in D. I'm going to put him above this person because maybe a little bit more memorable in terms of what he does in this series. But again, I thoroughly dislike him. Next up though, we do have Vice Minister Dalian. Of course, a pretty important character in the series, definitely important when it comes to relena. He's written out far too soon in the story. I can't remember exactly what episode he gets killed in, but it's within the first 10 episodes. So he's really not allowed around for that long, but he is the catalyst for relena's arc that she goes through. So for where he is in the story, for how he shows up and all that kind of stuff, like, he's solid, but he's just not in the series that much. So we're going to go and see. I'll put him here because the story that we're telling and the characters we're telling it about, he is more important than these two characters. Of course, the politician Heero is important for the world at large. This guy is important for elements of the story, but this character is important for elements of the story, but also elements of characterization as well. And then last, but not quite least, we do have zechs, the Char clone of this series, one of the most iconic Char clones. I'd be tempted to say he's like the second most recognizable aside from Char himself. Zechs is a character that I've never truly been able to get behind, and it's nothing wrong with what they do with the character. It's more so that they tried to take Char's entire arc over the course of Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta Gundam, and then ultimately Char's counterattack, and they kind of squash all that down so we get that entire thing going on with Zechs in this, 40, almost 50 episode series, of which he's written out of it for significant portions of time. Again, Zechs is one of those characters that really does suffer from being written out of the story for quite a large sum of time, and in the middle they just don't do enough with him. Like, he's there, but he really doesn't feel like a focal point, and that's kind of where he's going through that like Zeta era Char Quattro kind of scenario. As much as I hate to do this, he is going to go in C. We are going to put him right at the top though, just because, as a Char clone he's still pretty cool. If I can move this around, I really wish I liked him a lot more than I did, but ultimately I feel like there's a lot of flaws in not how he's written, but the time dedicated to him, plus the amount they're trying to do with the character. So I wish that I could go into the B, go into the A, but unfortunately with Zechs, he's got to sit in C. There we have it though. That is my tier list ranking every single character in Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. I think I included everyone. There may be some other very small minor characters that aren't in here, but in terms of major characters where there's actually things to talk about, I'm pretty sure I got everyone. Before I get out of here though, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, like I said earlier, head on down to the comment section below. Let me know your favorite characters or character in Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. Also, let me know your least favorite characters, all that kind of stuff. And stay tuned because I will have a tier list for the mobile suits from Gundam Wing. And then at some point, sometime past that, I will watch Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, do a review of that, do a character tier list, mobile suit tier list, all that kind of stuff. So if there are characters from Endless Waltz that you did not see in this tier list, there is a good reason for that. There will be a separate one at some point. Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today, and I'll see you guys next time.